In Tokyo, people don't usually pay attention to the small details that fall between exhaustion and routine. But for 28-year-old office lady Aki Sato, one detail refused to be ignored. Every night, minutes after midnight, a crisp white envelope slid under her apartment door. Silent, deliberate, unnervingly precise. At first, she thought it was a prank or a misplaced delivery. But the handwriting was elegant, old-fashioned, and clearly intentional. The letters always began the same way. "Good evening, Aki-san. I hope today didn't tire your heart too much." What she didn't know yet was that the sender had already been dead for 7 years. Aki lived alone in a small apartment in Nakano, squeezed between her demanding corporate job and a loneliness she rarely admitted. The midnight letters quickly became the strangest part of her day. They referenced things she had never told anyone, her fear of disappointing others, the recurring childhood dreams she had, even what she cooked for dinner. Each message felt impossibly personal, as if someone had been quietly observing her life from the shadows. She checked security cameras in the hallway, but the footage never showed anyone. The envelopes seemed to appear out of thin air. Her friends advised her to ignore the letters or report them, but Aki found herself drawn to them. They were oddly comforting, written in a gentle voice that felt more sincere than anyone she had spoken to in months. The writer called himself Ren, a name unfamiliar to her. Every night at 12:07 a.m., another letter arrived. The timing never changed. The detail that unsettled her the most wasn't the content, but how the letters predicted her emotions as if the writer lived inside her thoughts. One evening, after a draining day at work, Aki sat on the floor with a pile of envelopes spread in front of her like tarot cards. She noticed something she hadn't before. The paper had a faint scent of incense, the kind used in Buddhist memorial ceremonies. And the handwriting, although beautiful, looked like something from another era, each stroke precise, almost ceremonial. She wondered if Ren was an elderly man or a young writer with a dramatic flair. But deep down, she sensed something else, something impossible. The turning point came when Ren referenced something no living person could have known. "Tonight marks exactly 16 years since your father apologized at your window," he wrote. Her chest tightened. That memory was locked away, her father standing outside her childhood home after a fight, apologizing through the window because he didn't want to wake her mother. Aki had never told anyone. She dropped the letter, hands trembling. How could a stranger know? And why did the ink seem slightly faded, as if it were written years ago instead of minutes? Determined to understand, Aki responded. She slipped her own letter under the door right after midnight, staying awake, watching the entrance like a detective staking out a suspect. At 12:07 a.m., nothing happened. She blinked, then checked the hallway empty. She returned to her room, defeated, only to find a new envelope already placed neatly on her bed. Her breath caught in her throat. She lived alone. She had been in the room the entire time. Rin had responded to her exact words, acknowledging her questions gently, as if everything was completely normal. Ren's replies became more revealing. He claimed he once lived in her neighborhood. He said he admired her resilience, her quiet strength, the way she kept going even when she felt invisible. He wrote about the loneliness of Tokyo, how crowds could drown a person without ever touching them. His words carried a warmth she hadn't felt in years. But he never explained how he delivered the letters or how he knew her so deeply. Whenever she asked directly, the reply would be vague, almost sorrowful. "I am closer than you think, yet farther than you can imagine." The tone of the letters shifted subtly. Rin began hinting at regret, mistakes he made, people he hurt, opportunities he lost before his time ended. Aki assumed he meant emotionally, until one night he wrote, "Living people never truly understand how heavy silence becomes after the final breath." A chill ran through her. She read the sentence again and again. He spoke about death not figuratively, but with the clarity of someone who had crossed that boundary. She wanted to dismiss the thought, but the air in the room felt different, heavy, almost watchful. Aki started researching. She searched public records for anyone named Ren who lived near her area but found nothing recent. She dug through old newspapers online and stumbled upon a small article from 7 years earlier. A young man named Ren Ishikawa died in a hit-and-run accident near Nakano. He was 24. The photo showed a gentle-faced man with expressive eyes, the kind of gaze that seemed to see right through people. Her heartbeat faltered. The resemblance between the man in the photo and the emotional depth of the letters was uncanny. That night's letter arrived right on schedule. But this time it was different. The paper felt colder, almost damp, like it had been touched by something not entirely of this world. Rin wrote, "I see you found the truth. I'm sorry you had to learn it this way." Aki's hands shook as she read the rest. He explained that he didn't remember the moment he died, but he remembered everything he wished he had said when he was alive. And somehow, for reasons he didn't understand, his words reached her, only her. Rin claimed he was drawn to Aki because she lived the life he never got to finish. "You walk the streets I once walked," he wrote. "You carry the wounds I never healed." Aki felt a strange mix of fear and empathy. She wasn't sure if she believed in ghosts, but the consistency and depth of the letters made her question everything. The idea that someone could reach out from beyond death wasn't comforting, but neither was the thought of being so deeply understood by no one at all. She tried to stop reading the letters. For 3 nights, she ignored them, leaving the envelopes unopened on her table. But instead of fading, the letters became more intense. Ren pleaded softly, asking why she had stopped listening, saying her silence reminded him of the loneliness he felt before he died. He wrote about the night of the accident, how he had been walking home after quitting a job he hated, promising himself he'd start over the next day. He never made it. The guilt in his words felt unbearably human. Aki finally broke the silence. She wrote back honestly. She was scared. She didn't understand how any of this was possible. Rin replied that he didn't either, only that every night, at the moment between one day ending and another beginning, he found himself able to reach her. "Maybe it's because we're both stuck," he wrote. "Both living in memories we haven't healed." His words struck her deeply. She realized she and Ren were connected by something more than mystery. They were connected by loneliness. The letters became a ritual. Midnight, the soft whisper of paper sliding against the floor. The sound was never loud, but it carried a presence, like a heartbeat in the silence. Aki found herself opening up in ways she never had with anyone. She told Ren about her pressures at work, her fear of disappointing her mother, her longing for something meaningful. Rayton listened. He responded with insights that felt impossibly wise for someone who died young, reminding her gently that she deserved more than survival. But with comfort came consequence. Aki began withdrawing from real life. She avoided friends, skipped work, and stayed up waiting for the letters. Her manager scolded her for missing deadlines. Her best friend accused her of hiding something. She didn't know how to explain that she was emotionally invested in someone who no longer existed in the world of the living. The letters became both her solace and her trap, each message drawing her deeper into a reality that wasn't meant for the living. Eventually, Rin addressed the growing bond between them. "You make me wish I had lived longer," he wrote. "You make me wish I had met you." His vulnerability was touching, but it alarmed Aki. She sensed an undercurrent of longing that wasn't entirely healthy for either of them. She asked him what he wanted from her. His response came slowly but clearly. "I want to say goodbye properly. Something I never got to do. But the closer I am to you, the harder it becomes to leave." One night, the letter stopped. Midnight came and went. Aki sat awake until dawn, staring at the door, her chest tight with worry and confusion. She felt the absence more painfully than she expected. Days passed with no word from Run. The silence felt punishing. She wondered if the connection had ended, or if he had finally moved on. The lack of closure gnawed at her, reopening every wound she thought the letters had helped heal. After a week, Aki found an envelope inside her locker at work. She froze. No one knew her combination, and the letter was unmistakably from Ren. Inside, the message was short. "I'm fading." He explained that his time, whatever that meant, was running out. The connection had been weakening since she tried to distance herself. He said he didn't blame her, but he wished he had been brave enough in his life to say the things he said in death. The letter ended with a trembling stroke of ink, as if the writer's hand had faltered. Aki felt an urgency she didn't fully understand. She didn't want Run to vanish without a final word. That night, she sat by the door, clutching a letter she had written, one that thanked him for seeing her, for listening, for making her feel less alone. The clock struck midnight. Silence. Then, 12:07 a.m., the familiar soft slide. She exhaled shakily. The envelope felt lighter than usual, almost fragile, like it might dissolve if she held it too tightly. Ren's handwriting was faint, nearly translucent. He thanked her for responding, and said he could feel the end approaching. "The boundary is closing," he wrote. "I'm being pulled somewhere I can't resist." He said he wasn't afraid, only regretful that their connection came too late for him to experience life again. Aki felt tears welling. She realized she wasn't just receiving messages from a ghost. She had formed an emotional bond with someone whose entire existence now hinged on a fading thread. For the first time, Aki asked Ren directly what he needed to move on. His final reply that night was simple: "Forgive me for burdening you. And forgive yourself for living small." She didn't fully understand the second part, but the message lingered like an unfinished melody. She pressed the letter to her chest and breathed deeply. For the first time in years, she wanted to change, not because Ren asked her to, but because she realized how much of her life she had allowed to slip past her. The next letter arrived before dawn. This had never happened. The envelope was darker, aged, as if it had traveled through a different place entirely. Ren explained that this would be his final letter. The words were shaky, the sentences fragmented. He said he could barely hold on to consciousness, whatever that meant for the dead. But he wanted her to know one thing, that meeting her had given his unfinished life a final purpose. "Thank you for hearing a voice no one else could hear," he wrote. "Thank you for helping me remember who I was." Aki stayed awake until morning reading and rereading the final letter. When she left for work, she walked past the spot where Ren died, a quiet intersection near a dim street lamp. She placed the letter gently on the ground. It felt like the right thing to do, a silent offering to someone who had lingered too long in a world that could no longer hold him. As she walked away, the early morning air felt strangely lighter, as if something had quietly settled. The letter stopped after that. Not another envelope appeared under her door. Her apartment felt emptier, but also clearer, like a room after spring cleaning. She missed Ren's presence, but she also felt a resolve she hadn't felt in years. She started reconnecting with friends, taking breaks at work, treating herself with a kindness she had long forgotten. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't magical. It was simply human, the kind of healing that begins one small step at a time. Weeks later, Aki visited Ren's family tomb in Saitama. She left a white lily and one of his letters, the one where he had thanked her for listening. Standing there, she felt an unexpected peace. It was strange mourning someone she had never met in life but had known deeply in death. She whispered a quiet promise to live more honestly, more boldly, something both she and Ren had been too afraid to do when it mattered. When she returned to Tokyo, she noticed small changes in herself. She smiled more. She spoke up during meetings. She stopped apologizing for simply existing. Her coworkers noticed the shift, though they didn't understand it. Aki didn't offer explanations. Some connections aren't meant to be understood by others. Some stories live privately in the spaces between the living and the dead. One night, months later, she found a single envelope inside a drawer she rarely used. Her heart raced, but the paper was blank, completely empty. No handwriting, no incense scent, no date. Just an untouched piece of paper. She took it as a sign, not of Ren's return, but of a life still unwritten ahead of her. A reminder that she had the chance to write her own story now. Aki began journaling. Not letters to Ren, but letters to herself. She wrote about her hopes, frustrations, dreams, and fears. She learned to listen to her own voice with the same attentiveness she had once reserved for the midnight letters. In the process, she discovered something surprising. She wasn't as fragile as she had thought. She wasn't as invisible as she feared. She simply needed someone, living or dead, to remind her that her feelings mattered. As time passed, Ren became a memory rather than a presence. A bittersweet one, tender in its strangeness. Aki sometimes wondered why she, of all people, had been the one to receive his words. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe fate. Or maybe two lonely souls, separated by life and death, had found a rare moment of connection in the quiet hours of midnight. Whatever the reason, she carried it with her, not as a haunting, but as a lesson. In the end, Aki didn't need more letters to feel seen. She had learned to see herself. Tokyo still moved fast, with its noise, neon lights, and endless demands. But Aki walked through it differently now, shoulders relaxed, steps steady. She no longer waited for midnight. She no longer expected a ghost to speak for her heart. She had taken her voice back. And somewhere beyond the boundary between worlds, Ren's final whisper lingered gently. Live while you can, Aki-san. Live enough for both of us.